It's renowned as one of the most exotic island chains in the world. Pristine sands, azure blue seas, and colorful reefs make Zanzibar. It's also home to some of nature's most bizarre creatures. Many have grown to enormous sizes and now roam. Zanzibar is an untamed wilderness, is a land of giants. Lying 40 kilometers off the east coast of Tanzania, in Africa, the Zanzibar archipelago is dominated by two islands, Unguja and Pemba. Unguja is the larger of the two, measuring just over 80 kilometers long and 30 wide. Isolated from the mainland, many of the species here have evolved unique characteristics. But what makes Zanzibar such an extraordinary group of islands is many of the creatures here are giants of their kind. Zanzibar's ocean holds one of the world's greatest giants. Traveling further down the reef, another giant looms. They are also filter feeders, and when plankton blooms, everyone joins in the feeding frenzy. Filtering large volumes of water, they funnel the miniature prey into their gaping mouths. A single manta can sieve up to 17 kilos of plankton a day. Barrel rolling is a quick way of returning to a particularly dense patch of food. These flowing movements have meant people often describe the manta rays as the ballerinas of the ocean. But there is another, less obvious giant living here in the ocean. It can stretch over 90 kilometers and has been growing for over 50 million years. It's the coral reef itself, a living seascape made up of millions of tiny plant-like animals known as coral polyps. Together, they act as a single supersized organism. Secreting calcium carbonate from their base, the polyps form complex and striking sculptures. Colonies grow over thousands of years, eventually joining other communities to become a reef. Zanzibar hosts some of the most spectacular coral gardens in the world. And over 90% of East Africa's hard coral species the most important giant in Zanzibar's ocean. Moving out of the ocean and sandy beaches as they maintain their burrows. And burns huge amounts of energy. So having food aplenty is essential. Algae and fungus scraped off filtered sand particles forms the bulk of this crab's diet. Feeding is a production line process, leaving sand pellets dotted along the shore. There is also another crab species living here, and mealtimes prove a little more challenging. As the new tide approaches, it's a scramble to retreat to safety underground. The stranded risk being swept out to sea and drowning with the rising water. The turning of Zanzibar's tides governs the lives of many creatures, but certain life forms have set up permanent home on dry land. Just off Unguja Island lies Chumba, just 1 kilometer long and 300 meters wide. It's here a fossilized coral has. To store this much water, the baobab trunk can be up to 10 meters wide, and they can grow up to 20 meters tall. These trees can live for hundreds of years, with some of the oldest being over 1,000 years old. They are the green giants within Zanzibar's unique forests. 40 kilometers north of Unguja is where the other dominant island of Zanzibar lies. Pemba is unlike the other islands of the archipelago, a true landmass with rolling hills and forested valleys, earning it the name the Green Island. Here, a unique canopy resident lives, the Pemba flying fox. A giant of its kind, it is renowned for its very sweet tooth. Flying foxes are the largest species of bat in the world, with a wingspan in excess of 1.5 meters. Most other bats use acute hearing to capture insects, but flying foxes are fruit bats and rely on their large eyes to track down their meals. Blossom, nectar, and ripe fruit make up the majority of their diet. These bats are highly social, so they live in large groups with up to 850 individuals living in one roost. When night falls, the reason for these large groups starts to become clear. The flying foxes head out on their nightly exodus to find food. Splitting up amongst the forest means they can cover a large area. They use their loud calls to communicate about specific feeding sites, working as a team to make sure everyone gets their fair share of food. These flying foxes are incredibly important for the whole forest ecosystem, as they are the pollinators and seed dispersers of many plants. 20 years ago, these giant bats were virtually hunted to extinction by local islanders. But today, the species is protected. The Pemba people realize the important role the bats play in keeping the region's forests alive. While the bats are helping out here, there is another mammal that causes nothing but trouble. Be back for more. Alongside the annoying antics of the troop's teenagers, the process of digesting large volumes of leaves creates a rather unfortunate byproduct. While the Pemba canopy has a rather unique smell. Back on Nguja Island, the colobus in Jazani Forest have discovered it. Here in Jazani, red colobus have long worked out that eating charcoal aids the digestion of exotic leaves. This learned behavior is passed down from mother to young through imitation. But how they first developed this craving for can seen nowhere else on Earth. It's not just the colobus monkeys that have made Jazani their home. A vast array of unique and colourful species bring this forest to life. And there is also another species of primate that enjoys the canopy life. These are Zanzibar's giant carpenter ants. Measuring almost 2 centimeters in length, their giant mandibles mean they also have a giant bite. When threatened, they will put up a strong defensive fight that can scare off even the largest predators. But the giant carpenter ants aren't the only animals here on Zanzibar that are the giant mini-beasts of their kind. The island is famous for them. This is the giant millipede. At up to 30 centimeters in length, they are the largest species found anywhere on Earth. With hundreds of legs, they move through the forest in a wave-like motion. These legs are not used for speed, but for power, to dig through the soil, debris, and the bark of any decaying tree. And as night falls, these millipedes are heading out on their nightly exodus to find food. But you don't need hundreds of legs to be a giant here. Measuring over 15 centimeters in length, the giant African snail is the largest in the world. Its body is all muscle, so strong it uses contractions to move this giant through the forest. The 2 large tentacles on the snail's head contain their eyes, but this isn't the snail's most important sense. Unlike us, they don't have a nose. It's their lower tentacles that they use to track down food. Containing olfactory neurons at the tips, these are their smell sensors. Their shell is their main defense from predators. So important, it can even repair any minor crack. It is able to do this by consuming calcium, which it finds in bones from carcasses, sand, and small stones. It then secretes it into the shell, keeping it in pristine condition. They may look harmless, But as one of the most invasive species on Earth, this is one giant not to be messed with. And it's certainly too much of a mouthful for this flap-necked chameleon. He's on the hunt for something a lot smaller. He's hungry for crickets. Moving among the branches is where this chameleon is most happy and most likely to find its prey. But then he spots a rival chameleon. Like all chameleons, their eyes are on cone-shaped turrets that can move independently. This enables them to look in two directions at once, so no cricket can escape their deadly stare. We will win! But these rivals seem to have locked onto the same cricket. It's a race to the finish. As once spotted, prey is caught by a tongue that can accelerate 5 times faster than a fighter jet. Fortunately for both males, at this time of year, crickets are abundant, so there is plenty of food to go round. And once the prey is snared in its sticky mucus tongue and locked in the vacuum created by muscles in the tip, there is no escape. Back on... A complex system of aerial routes enables the intake of oxygen and traps organic debris that would otherwise be washed out to sea. Heading inland from this mangrove is the largest reserve of mature woodland on the entire archipelago. Living fossils, like this cycad tree, have remained almost unchanged for millions of years, with a lineage stretching back beyond the dinosaurs. As night falls over the islands, some of Zanzibar's most unique animals appear from the shadows. This is no ordinary rat. At almost 1 meter in length, it's one of the largest in the world. Known as the giant pouched rat, it's able to store vast amounts of food in its expandable cheeks. Its eyesight is very poor, but is compensated for by an excellent sense of smell and hearing. Its giant nose is so sensitive, scientists have begun using this species to sniff out landmines and detect human diseases, such as tuberculosis. But right now, this rat is using its nose to track down insects, termites, fruit, and vegetable matter, all of its favorite kinds of food. But there is another giant living in Zanzibar that is like no other. It's the world's biggest creepy crawly, and it too reveals itself in the cover of darkness, completing the cycle of Zanzibar's greatest giant. Zanzibar is an island paradise. and its isolation has seen Zanzibar's creatures evolve and grow. Many mainland species are forced to remain small to escape predators. Abundant food, less competition, and fewer predators have had a positive effect. They've allowed Zanzibar and its many islands to become a land of giants.